Hi Not Board Gamers and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's video, which is the very first review video of 2022. So first of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I am going to be covering a game which recently arrived to Kickstarter backers. It was launched on Kickstarter last year by Nemesis Games and it was delivered to backers just before Christmas. I picked it up, I was on holiday over Christmas, so I picked it up when I came back on New Year's Eve. And this game has hit my table so many times since. I think I'm 7 or 8 games deep in this particular game. And what am I talking about? Of course, as you can see from the box here, I'm talking about Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor by Nemesis Games. It is a 1 to 4 player, fully cooperative 4X game. That's right, it's a soloable 4X game where you are going to take on as a solo player, 2 or more factions who've been kind of withheld down by the emperor, these legions of the empire, the imperial legions, but you're rising up against them to try and expand throughout the landscape and try and take over and regain your freedom. But not only are you battling the empire and the imperial legions, you're also battling the hordes that are out there, and they're coming in and they will fight you, they will fight the legion will fight you, it will fight the hordes. There is a lot going on in this game. So, Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor was designed by Cornelius Kremin, Paul Mazur and Dirk Sommer. In early December, I was invited to play the game on TTS with Cornelius, and we played through a couple of chapters, well, I think it was one chapter, so a couple of rounds of the game. And on the TTS, which is, by the way, one of the best scripted TTS mods I've seen, the gameplay was utterly astounding, so they were kind enough to send me a review copy, and that's what I've got in front of me here. Now, as you know, with my previous reviews, when I get review copies, it's no guarantee of a good review, but I've got to tell you, by the fact I've had this on my table so many times, I'm thoroughly enjoying my time with Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. I've also got the expansion as well, which adds additional characters you can play, because the base game comes with four factions, and each faction has 2 heroes, and then there are, I think, 4 more factions in the expansion, as well as some nemesis that you can put on the board, which will make the game even more difficult. But I'm just going to cover the base game in this video because, to tell you the truth, I'm having so much fun with this. I haven't even tried any of the expansion stuff so far. Now, as I say, it's a fully cooperative 1 to 4 player 4X game, and it covers all of the X's in the 4X. You've got the expand, you've got explore, you've got exterminate, you've got exploit. They are all within this game, and it does so with massive aplomb as well. Now, a key thing to notice when you first get your game of Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor is, first of all, the wonderful game tray system that's in there. Everything has a place. I love game tray systems when they work, and this one works absolutely sublimely. You're probably not, definitely not going to be able to fit the expansions into the base game box, but that's okay. Within that base game box, you have these wonderful game trays, which means you can store everything away. And another thing as well, now, where a lot of games go for minis, Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor has gone for some wonderful acrylic standees. And as you can see from this picture here, they look absolutely fantastic. You have standees for each of the factions. There's 2 heroes, as I mentioned, in each faction box, and they get their own standees as well. The hordes and the legions have their standees. You have cursors, you have skeletons on the board as well. The acrylic standees make for a really bright experience because, you know, we sometimes, when we get minis through, unless they're kind of, you know, in a particular colour of plastic, they're generally just grey on the board, and you either have discs at the bottom to identify them. But by moving to acrylic standees, we've got a pretty unique experience here, and I think that, you know, if this is the quality of acrylic standees, it's something I'm looking forward to seeing more of as more games progress. But as I say, the quality components, absolutely outstanding. The card stock quality is really, really thick. You may want to sleeve your cards, and that's absolutely fine. There's place and space within the game trays for you to put sleeved cards in there. I don't sleeve my cards. I know, bad me. I've just got too many games and not enough time to sleeve them all. But yeah, it comes with wonderful card stock. It's got some fantastic dice that you can use as well, which are these here. It's got some cardboard tokens, and then it has these hexes which you place on the board, and I'll talk more about that as we go through the gameplay in a wee while. Now, over a number of chapters, and you're going to choose how many chapters you play. I would say a minimum of 2, but you can play up to 4. And the chapters get progressively harder and harder as you go through them. The aim of the game is to do the full 4X, kind of uprise against the legions, fight off the hordes, expand across the land, spread your havens all over the place, and that's these things here which increase your productivity but also kind of give you ownership of squares as well, whilst defeating the hordes and the garrisons of the legion, etc. The aim of the game, after a set number of chapters that you will choose, is to end up with more points than both the horde and the legion. And let me tell you, that's not an easy thing to do, depending on how the game goes, and each game plays very, very differently because it's quite dynamic. There's a number of cards which were variant on the chapters. There's a number of tiles that you'll put on the board, and obviously they will change around, and it's not the same number that goes on the board, so there's always some left over, so you don't know what tiles are coming up on the board as well. And the game becomes quite dynamic. I've had games where the horde has taken an early lead, or I've taken an early lead, or the legion has taken a lead, and it becomes this real kind of not race, but a chase, if you like, to try and expand and try to minimise the impact on them as they spread out onto their board and try and knock you down and try and defeat your forces, but also defeat each other in the process, because they will score victory points for not only defeating you, but also for defeating the legions will score victory points for defeating the hordes, and vice versa there. So their victory point markers are moving up on the track the whole time. It is a wonderfully, just finish off on production here, possibly one of the best produced games I've seen in recent years. For the price point that you pay for this, I think it's an absolutely outstanding value package here. All of the acrylic miniatures, all of the game trays, the wonderful boards, and as you can see, it takes up quite a bit of table real estate. The card stock, the dice, the tokens, the counters for your victory points, etc. It's all absolutely first-class quality. On top of that, we have potentially one of the best rule books I've read in quite a while as well. It's ring-bound as well, which is really, really good, but it walks you through each of the various stages that you're going to take, or the phases that you're going to take within the game itself, and the actions that you take as well. You see, your actions, each round, you get a maximum of 8 action tokens, and that allows you to take certain actions. Those actions are move, trade, command, where you kind of bring your forces together, explore, which allows you to flip tiles over, haven, where you can place your havens and start spreading out, market, to buy stuff from the items market, or quests, where you'll do these little quests and you'll roll dice from your heroes to see if you achieve the quest. That gives you benefits, but if you fail them, it can be pretty tricky for you as well. All the while you're taking your actions, you've got to be mindful of the fact that the hordes and the legions are spreading out across this board, trying to get as many points as they can and also defeat you in as much way as possible. So, without much further ado, let's have a look at how a round of gameplay takes place in Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. Okay, so here in front of me, barely able to fit on my camera screen, is a solo game set up for Curse of the Last Emperor. Now, I have my 2 factions here, and I've chosen a hero for each one. Now, as you can see, for this red faction, I've chosen Karl the Destroyer, but I could have chosen Dugpa the Seer. And each hero comes with their own deck of cards that you're going to use, and also 2 starting cards. You have your various resources down here: food, salt, and the red one, which I can't remember, plunder. That's what that is. You have your havens here, and here you have your various acrylic standees. So they come with 6 tribesmen. They come with 3 basic archers, 3 Vargs, who's an elite rider, and 1 troll, which is an elite warrior as well. Handily, on the board, you've got the various actions you can take. And if you look over here, I've got my hero on their starting hex, because they both get starting hexes, or your heroes get starting hexes. The other one's right at the top of the board, and you place a haven on there as well. Now, there's a layout in the rule book, and it tells you how to lay out for 2, 3, 4 players, etc. Or 1, 2, 3, 4 players. As a solo player, you're going to set it up as a 2-player option. And I've started down here with a curse and 2 skeletons, and there's some up at the top of the board as well. You have your various unexplored hexes here, and throughout the game we're going to be moving onto those hexes and exploring them, flipping them over, resolving them, and then trying to expand into those areas. There's also these sea towers here as well, which need exploring. There's 2 on this particular map. Sea towers are really useful because when you're on them, they act as adjacent to any hex whatsoever. So you can move various hexes. So that's kind of the player boards. We have Karl the Destroyer and Baranth the Wall over here, and they're very asymmetrical. So they have completely different. Baranth has completely different units as to Karl. So here he's got 5 younglings who are basic warriors, 3 spear singers who are basic archers, 3 Oathsworn, who's an elite warrior, and 1 Koloth, who's an elite rider, as well as their own deck of cards as well. So that's what you get there. And if you look up at the top here, over on the right hand side, I have my hordes ready. Now I don't know which of these hordes are going to come out, and I'll explain why in a second. And over on the left are the legions in purple, the Imperial Legions. There are a number of cards that you will get for legions and hordes, and for a 2-player game you're going to pull out 5 of those and put them face down. Obviously you don't know which they're going to be, and at various points in the game they're going to be brought onto the map, and they're going to start their kind of campaign against you and against each other in trying to fight everybody and gain as many victory points as possible. You also see these druid cards. Now I've set up 4 on here because the game is set up with 4 chapters. So 4 druid cards. You're going to turn one over at the beginning of the game, and these give you particular actions if you roll something on your dice when you're in combat, and these are these bolts here. For example, on this one, it's archery and clash. So if I roll a bolt in my combat, we'll come to that in a bit, I will ignore all hits showing on 1 die that my enemy rolled. So that's if I roll a bolt during combat. Now around here, you can see there's some lighter terrain as well. We have the Howling White, we have Fog Grave, and we have the Screaming Sea. You cannot expand into those areas. You can go into those areas, but you cannot expand into those areas, so you can't place your havens there. Any hexes that come up in there, like you'll see on the sea towers and maybe a couple of others, that have these little red X's on there, it means you can't put a haven on there as well. Now also under these hexes, and I don't know what's there, gives you an indication of kind of, if you look at this, this is saying that under this hex you may find maybe heavily weighted toward food in terms of resource there. But you don't know what's on those hexes, you know, obviously until you explore them and flip them over and see what happens on there. And the aim of the game is going to be to kind of explore those, move on to those, explore them, get my units onto there, and try and expand my or both factions across the map. But also on there's various types of terrain as well, and terrain does different things. So there are 6 types of terrain. There is ice waste, which have no effect. There are woods, which means you re-roll up to 2 dice in the archery phase. There are highlands, which means archers only roll 1 die. There's a curse, which means only chaos can use the bolt actions. There are marshes, which means that for both archery and hand-to-hand combat, red dice become white, and then the Badlands, for archery, rider units, you add their dice into them as well. So there's a dynamic aspect to this in terms of combat. So let's have a look over here at the quest board. I'll go and set the camera up over there in a second and show you what happens over here with the quest, the market, the round tracker or the chapter tracker, and the various event cards as well. So starting off on the right hand side here, you have your item deck, your market deck. You see one of your actions is that you buy cards from the market. And if we look at one of these cards, let's look at this one here. It says that if I pay 3 salt and I have guile of 2, and that's one of your attributes, and they're different for each hero, and you can upgrade them throughout the game, then I can buy this card and I can put it into my tableau, and you're allowed to have a maximum of 10 item cards, an item or your own cards. And it says here actions, when I use the command action I don't pay any food, because when you normally use command action you pay a food to do that, and command allows you to bring your troops onto your hex or onto a hex to start combat there. And the market's going to cycle throughout the game, so when you buy an item, you replace it, but at the end of each round or each chapter, you're also going to replace that market. Here we have quests, so as well as doing this, you can take quest action as well. And quests have various things on there. So you're going to roll your hero dice, because each hero, if we just look at Carl here, Carl, you can see that he's got 3 might and 1 lead on there. So what that means is he would roll 3 red die and 1 blue die. Now there are ways to increase this, as I say. You'd roll your hero die on a quest and you would try to get whatever's on here. So if I get 3 hits, I would get whatever's under there, and it's nothing. If I get 1 shield, I'd then draw a new quest, because quests generally aren't updated until the end of each chapter. And here, I may discard items from the market if I get a bolt. Now, to be successful, I actually have to have at least 1 success, so I have to hit one of those. And if I solve it, every player gains 1 resource for each shield and each bolt I rolled. Maximum 5 per player, and then discard this quest. But if I fail it, it says discard this quest and draw a new one. There are different actions on there. So for example, on this one, it says if it's failed, place 1 curse on a hex with no restrictions on havens, and then discard this quest. Also down at the bottom of the quest as well, it says if I'm on a sea tower, I get to roll an additional purple die. And I think black is the most is the strongest die, and then you have the purple there. I'll come on to the chapters in a second, because you have the chapter tracker up here. And this is the flow of the game. It takes you through, and there's this handy little marker that you go down and you actually make sure that you're covering every part on each chapter. And we'll cover that as I show you the gameplay. Then, as you can see, I've got each chapter kind of laid out here, a card for each chapter. Now, there are numerous cards. You pick one, put it on there. And at the beginning of each chapter, you're going to turn one of these over, resolve the actions on there, which are invariably going to put hordes or legions on the board and start setting the game state up for you. So that's kind of how this board works here. Over on the far end, just over there, you have your Chaos Graveyard, your Imperial Graveyard, your Legions and your Hordes on there. And the graveyards are where you're going to put your character, your units, when they get defeated by either Hordes or Legions. There's more to discuss in this game, and we'll talk about things like towers and threats, etc. As we go through how the game plays. But that gives you an overview on exactly how the board state looks. Right, let me take you through a round of Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor from Nemesis Games. Okay, so that's kind of an overview on how the game itself works. What I'll do is just quickly run through a round. I'm not going to run through every particular move that you can do, because I think you guys need to explore this a little bit. So we'll go through things quite briefly. And following the chapter track, the first thing you do is you reveal 1 druid card. Now you're going to set a number of druid cards out, depending on how many chapters you do. So we'll reveal this one that we revealed earlier, which tells me that if I roll a bolt in combat, then I can ignore all hits on on 1 die of my enemy re-rolled. So that's that. Next thing is flip all your face down cards. Well, that will come in second round. Regain all your action points. Deal 3 new items. Well, we've got the items there. Deal 3 new quests. Pass the first player token left. Well, we're starting off with Carl being the first player. Then we move on to the event phase, and it says to add 2 threat to each legion and horde that's already in play. It's round 1. There aren't any in play, so we won't be doing that. And we first player draws the first event card, which is this one here, and we read it and then alter the game state. So this says Azer's Essence, and this says it's threat 4. So any of the legions or hordes that I put on the board are going to come on with threat 4. The Inquisition seeks to reassemble Azer's Essence scattered when the curse destroyed all life on the mainland. Place 1 salt on each unexplored hex that shows salt. If you flip that hex, you gain it. So I'll do that in a second. And then it says, aware of the Prophet Thorn's purpose, the Inquisition holds her captive, staving off the return of the old gods. Place 1 legion at threat 4 and its target on a sea tower. Place 1 horde at threat 4 on any empty hex adjacent to a different sea tower, and place 1 curse on any hex with none of that empty if possible. Okay, wow. So that's a pretty good one there. So the first thing we'll do is we'll place a salt on any hex that shows a salt. So if you look at the hexes here, I've got 2, I think. We've got this one here, the unexplored sea tower, that one there, and that one there. That means if they're explored, whoever gets them gets a salt. Then it says to place a legion at threat 4 and its target on a sea tower. So we're going to draw the first legion card. And who do we have? We have the new Emperor. It's See this little red skull in the top? That means it's a pretty difficult card. Immediate Imperial March. Place his target active. Activate every legion. We do not need an activation token to activate. Well, there aren't any of the legions on the board, so that's okay. And we know this is going at threat 4. So what you do, you take one of these little threat markers, and we're going to put it on number 4 here. So there we go. And we can see now, by this card on threat 4, in the archery phase, this particular guy is going to roll a blue and 2 white dice, and then the combat phase, a black, a purple, a blue, a red, and a yellow dice when they when they activate. And this is the new Emperor, so we're going to find his standee, and here we have the wonderful acrylic standee, and it says on the card to place his target on a and its target on a sea tower. So there we go. So we'll get that, and we'll get his target token as well. So the new Emperor target token is this one here. Okay, oops, you've seen that. So the legions, here we go, right way around helps, have target tokens. For targets, what you do is you place this target token on one of your factions, so there's 2 on the board at the moment, so I get to choose between them, on an area where they've got a haven and least amount of units. So neither of my factions have got units at the moment, so we'll place that target token there. That means the new Emperor is going to go there. So we'll just put his card to one side and he'll come up. And then it says, place 1 horde at threat 4 on any empty hex adjacent to a different sea tower. So we do the same thing for the horde. We grab a horde card, and who have we got? We got the Counter of Omens. And it says immediate, place 2 skeletons on his hex. So we know he's going to be threat 4, so we'll do that. So we take him to threat 4, which is there. Okay, and we'll get his standee, Counter of Omens. That's this wonderful looking standee here. And we place it on any hex adjacent to a different sea tower. This one's on this sea tower. There's only 2 sea towers on the board, so I could place this on any hex here. Now, this is down for me to place that. I may want to kind of attack him fairly quickly, so I'm going to place him there. But it also says on his board as an immediate action, place 2 skeletons on his hex as well. So we get 2 of the skeleton standees, which are these. And already we can see that we got a pretty formidable foes coming, some pretty formidable foes coming at us. And then it says place 1 curse on any hex with no X on there, empty if possible. Well, I don't have any on there at all. I've got the starting hexes there. They've got the havens on. But the others aren't revealed as of yet. So I think on this one, I could place it on. Oh, there we go. I could actually place a curse on any of these hexes, even though they're unexplored. It means they're classed as explored, but I can't build a haven on there. So let's put that on there. And that's how we sort out the chapter. Now, the aim of this chapter, the aim of all the games, is to try and at least build 1 haven and try and expand out into the map itself. But how do we do that? Well, first of all, there's only the heroes on the map at the moment, so we're moving to the next phase, which is the build phase. Oh, sorry, one thing I forgot to do is you place an activation token on each of these cards as well. These are these little tokens here, and that means the number of activation tokens, when it comes around to their go, they will activate that time. Then we got the build phase. The first thing we do is we take 2 cards from our deck, our feat cards. These are called the feat decks, and we choose one to keep in our tableau. So this one says archery and clash. I could fit that to lose 1 hit and gain a bolt, which is kind of good before damage. Or this one, if the troll was destroyed here, roll 1 black die and then re-roll any of those. I haven't got the troll on the board yet, so maybe that'll come out later. I'm going to keep that one. That one's going to go to the bottom of the deck, and I would do the same for Baranth as well. Bearing in mind there's a 10 card limit. Now I get to build my units. And for building units, you can see down at the bottom of the board here, for the tribesmen, it's going to cost me 1 food. For the Deadeyes, it's going to cost me 2 salt. For the elite riders, 3 salt, 2 food. And for the troll, 2 salt and 5 food there. So you take this time to actually build up what you want to build. You can also build towers and walls around your havens as well at a cost of 1 plunder each for those. Now, spending plunder is okay at the beginning to try and beef up your havens, but if you want to build new havens, certainly on Carl, he's got to play 3 plunder to do that, and I think Baranta's got to play 2 plunder to do that. So let's have a look. Say I want 3 tribesmen. That's going to cost me 3 food. So 1, 2, 3, and you have to put them where you have a haven, and that's going to cost me 3 food. So I'll get rid of my 3 food token, put it back over there, and that's got 3 on there now. Your hero isn't classed as a unit. You can only have 5 units on a particular, on one of your hexes. So I've still got a bit way to go. I can then place either 1 or 2 archers. So maybe I'll do that. I'll place at least 1 archer. No, let's place 2. Let's place 2 archers. That's going to cost me 4 salt. Oops, there we go. I'll place 2 archers on there. So I now have 5 units on my home hex there. I can still build. I've still got some resources left. So I've got 1 salt, 2 food, which means I can't build any more here. I can't put any more on there. What I can do is build up my tower defense, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend a plunder each and get a wall and a tower onto my haven. So there we go. And what these do, these add an element of defense on there. And you've got these little, let me just pull these up. Got these little brown walls and walls and towers that you put on your havens, and they build up your defences because they will add a white die for the tower and a blue die for your walls on there. And that's the build phase done. You would do the same for Baranth, but now you can see I've got units on the board. Now what we're going to do is get into the meat of the game, which is the actions phase. So for your actions, you get 8 activation tokens, and each turn you're allowed to play up to 2 actions. Some actions don't end your move, other actions do. The move action and the trade action do not end your turn. However, if I was to do command, explore, haven, market or quest, they would end my turn. So what you can do is you can effectively take two turns, 2 goes on your turn. You can move and then explore, and that would end your turn. Now, where there's unexplored hexes around you, only your hero can move on to them. For your units to move there, you have to have them explored. So what we'll do is, first of all, each activation costs 1 gem, and there we go. That's the gem took there, and we're going to, I don't know, let's move to this particular area here. So there's this tile here, which is currently unexplored. Then for my second action, what I will do is I'll place another token on there, and we'll flip that hex over. And what have we got? Right, we've got Imperial Slave Mines, and I'll explain what these lines are. Not every hex has them. And this says, remove any skeletons here, there aren't any, and place 2 garrisons. I'll do that in a second. And roll your hero dice. Get 1 plunder per hit rolled, and every other player gains 1 plunder. Now these hexes, these chevrons, if you like, here, your hero can pass through them, but your units can't pass through them, and neither can the enemy as well. So it's a good way to kind of try stifling your stuff. But I'm going to make a beeline for this new emperor. So I'm going to place that there. Now it does say place 2 garrisons. These are your garrisons, and they come in 3 levels. You have the base level, the second level, and then the top level. Now this says place 2, so we're going to place a level 2 garrison, which would be place that on there, and also place that on there as well. So the Legion is now present on there, and if I move any units on that particular hex, it's going to start combat. Then it asks me to roll my hero dice. Well, we know, if you remember from the beginning, that Carl has 3 red and 1 lead die. So we'll take 3 red die, 1, 2, 3, and 1 blue die here. And you can see that they have different symbols on there. You have shields, you have hits, and on some of them you're going to get a bolt on there as well. Okay, so we're going to roll my dice, my hero dice, and what's it say? It says on the card, sorry, on the hex, it says gain 1 plunder per hit roll, and I rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, so I get 4 plunder. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that goes onto my reserve. And it also says every other player gains 1 plunder, and that's what's on there. So Baranth can have that. Just one other thing at the hex, all right? Okay. So if we look at the bottom of the hex, it's got there the terrain that's on there. So if I was to combat on that terrain, the archers would only roll 1 die because that's in the Highlands. But here you can see it's got a 2 plunder on there. So if I get a haven on this terrain, once I've defeated the garrison on there, if I get a haven on there in the production phase, what will happen is I will gain 2 plunder. There we go. Oops. We'll put him back on there. Put the 2 garrisons on. That unit goes there, and he's there. And that's effectively ended his turn right now. It would then go over to Baranth, and he would do his moves at the top. Then it would come back to me. And what do I want to do here? Well, you see, what I can do is, I think the good thing to do here is potentially command. So to command, what I would do is I can choose a hex and move units, my units adjacent to that hex, as long as it's explored, onto that hex. As soon as they go on there, combat begins. I'll explain combat in a wee while. So that's what we'll do. But because it's a command, it's going to end my turn. So we do that. We pay 1 food. There we go. And I'm going to move 1, 2, 3. Yeah, in fact, no, we'll leave 1 of my tribesmen on there. So it's 2 tribesmen and 2 archers on there. Now there's this level 2 garrison on there, which means I'm going to start initiating combat now. So for combat, if we look over here, it tells you if you've got skeletons, what you're going to combat, and if you've got garrisons, what you're going to combat. Here we have a level 2 garrison, which means it's going to roll 2 white dice in the archery phase. However, we're on a mountain region, which means they only roll 1 die. So they're going to roll 1 white die, and I'm going to roll 1 white die. Now, of course, there are hits on there, and that means that you've secured a hit, but there are also shields. So if I roll a hit and they roll a shield, that means my hit is blocked, and vice versa there. And you need, the garrisons can be up to level 3, and you need a skull for each level, basically, on that. Now, obviously, in the archery phase, all I can do is roll 1 dice. And if I look here at my cards, there's nothing really here that helps me. So let's roll his dice first. We'll roll the garrison die, and it shouldn't only be 2, as I say, because he's level 2, but because we're on Highlands, it's only 1. And he's got a shield and a hit. Oh my God. And what have I got? I've got a shield and a hit. So we cancelled each other out there, which is really, really kind of fortuitous. Couldn't really make that up, could I? Okay, so nothing's happened in the archery round. Now we move on to combat, and combat will just continue until one side is defeated. And we look at combat for a level 2 garrison. It's a blue, 2 yellow, and a white die. So a blue, 2 yellow, and a white die. There we go. That's what he's going to roll. He doesn't re-roll for his archery. However, as an attacking player, as I'm one of the factions, I get to add my archery die in there for the combat round as well. And if you look at each of these, so each character has a die colour on there, and you're going to pick the number of die for each that you've got for those characters. So I've got, because I've got 2 archers, 2 white, and then 2 yellow die as well. So that's what we will do. We'll roll 2 white die and 2 yellow die. So we'll roll his first. You're meant to roll simultaneously. Obviously playing solo, it's a little bit difficult, but we'll do that. I'm just checking what I've got. Okay, I can get a bolt, which would then allow me to ignore. But other than that, after combat, if you have 1+ units here, gain 2 resources. Nothing really. So roll his dice first. Yowza, he's got 4 hits. Which is not good for me because I've only got 4 units on there. So I need some shields on this. And I've got 2 hits. Okay, so what would happen here is I would lose all of my figures. They would go to the Chaos Graveyard. And I would also defeat him at the same time because I'm getting 2 hits. However, if we look at this, it says I can flip this card to lose 1 and gain a bolt, which is good. which is fine. And then I could, if I gain that bolt, I get that particular card. I can use the Druid card, which allows me to ignore all hits showing on one die. But it still doesn't let me win that way. So what would happen here is, first of all, I would move all of my units, because there were 4 hits on there, no way of blocking them, and they would go to the Chaos Graveyard over there. But because I'd also done 2 hits as well, I would get rid of that garrison because it needed a hit per level on there. That also then gets me 2 victory points. So I've started up on the victory point tracker. But I'm left there with a hero and all of my units over in the Chaos Graveyard, and that matters for scoring at the end. Chaos, the Horde is going to score 2 for every faction that's in that Chaos Graveyard, which is just up there. Every faction that's in that Chaos Graveyard at the end of the round. So that's kind of how combat works. In terms of the garrisons, that wasn't a great one for me there. I managed to get rid of the garrison. So I do have the possibility next go of building a haven on there, which is good. That means I can start putting units on there. But unfortunately, I've lost the units that I've got so far, and I've only got 1 unit left on the board now. So that's combat against the garrisons. Now, if you're looking at hordes and legions, what happens here on the hordes and legions, it works the same way from my perspective. But there you can see in their archery round, they would roll a blue and 2 white. So that would happen, then I would roll mine, and then they would then roll in the combat rounds those. And every time I deliver damage, it knocks that down by 1. If I get that off the page, that's that one defeated, and I get 5 victory points for defeating that, but you also have to place 2 garrisons on the board. So that's a legion. Same for the horde there, but that's how combat works. And you can see it's dice-based combat, which may not be for everybody. Different coloured dice have different strengths on there, but you can see how it starts to spread out. And that early game, losing 4 of my units to start off is not a great start for me. So that's kind of that move there. So that was the command move there. What I could do once Brandt has taken his turn next is I could then place my action token on Haven and build a Haven. That would cost me 3 plunder. On most characters it's 2. For the red factions it's 3. So you play your 3 plunder, yeah, and I would move a Haven onto there. So I take the Haven from my board down here and I'd move it onto there. What that does in the production phase is that gives me more resources down here that I get. So in production phase, I get assault, I'd get a plunder, and I'd get 4 food. And it also means when it comes to the build phase, I can build wherever my havens are, so I can put units on there. What else can we do? We could do a market action. And over here we have 3 cards in the market. And if you look at the various costs on there, I don't think I can afford, I can afford one of them, I think, yeah. We have this one, which says if I've level 2 Guile and 3 Salt, I can get that, which means I don't pay any food for command actions. If I've got 1 Salt, I can buy this card, which allows me to gain a red die before rolling. And if I've got this card, it says flip this to regain 1 used crystal from your player board, so it gives me an additional go. The only one I could really buy is this one, so that's what we'll do. We'll buy this particular card, put it into my tableau. It's going to cost me a salt, but I can use that at any point, and you refill that market straight away. Finally, as I mentioned, your final move is going to be your quest move that you can do. And you can repeat the moves. You're not limited to 1 move, so you can move, explore, move command, etc., and that will allow you to do all those things repeatedly until you run out of crystals there. So here we go. I'm going to roll my hero die, and if I it allows me to remove cursors. Cursors are pretty important because you can't build havens on hexes with cursors. And also the hordes will get points for cursors as well. So let's roll my hero die to see if I can win this. So my hero die are 3 red and 1 blue die. So 1, 2, 3 and 1 blue. Let's see what happens when I roll this. Let's see if I win this particular curse. Okay. So I need to get at least 1 of these to pass this. It says there +1. I needed 3 hits, which I didn't have. I needed 1 shield, which I didn't have, but fortunately I do have 1 bolt, which means I have solved this. So I can choose a hex with a curse. I can pay 5 resources and gain 1 victory point. Well, I've literally got 5 resources left. I've got 4 plunder and 1 food, so we'll pay those, remove a curse, so that's gone, which will help me, and I can gain another victory point. And you can see my victory points starting to rack up. Now this would go backwards and forwards between myself, between both factions, until all of these activation tokens are used. So maybe, you know, some more actions have taken place there. We moved and we've explored again and moved around the board. And that's how you then start to kind of expand throughout here, but I'm pretty weak down here because of this. So once that phase is done, the actions phase, you're then going to move on to the Nemesis phase. And this is where you will activate your legions and your hordes for each activation token on there. Now we know that these guys have got 1 activation token on them each. So for example, if we were to activate the new Emperor, we know he's going to head towards my haven with the fewest units on, which is this one here. It's where the target is. Okay, so he's going to go there and he's got 1 unit, but he's only got 1 activation token. So all he's going to do is, here we go, yeah, all he's going to do is move from there to there. That's all he can do now. Doesn't fight your hero, he only fights units, but you can see he's going here and he's gunning for that haven. We do the same for the horde. And this horde, yeah, so he's got 1 activation token. He's going to move towards the capital. Now, there's a whole decision tree of how the horde moves. It's based on potentially what hexes are around them, if they're empty, if you can't move further away from the capital. So we get to choose here because they're all 2 away from there. So that one is going to move on to there. Obviously, in the real-time game, Baranth would have been somewhere as well. So that's the Nemesis phase. Or you should activate them in order from lowest to highest as well, basically. But which meant that the horde was the lowest initiative, and I'll show you the initiative. Each one has an initiative number in the top corner there. This is initiative 13. The Legion was initiative 29, so I should have moved horde first because it can make a difference who moves where. Then you move into the production phase. So you gain the resources based on your total number of havens. Now, down on my board here, I've got 2 havens. It says I'm going to get a salt, a plunder, and 4 food. So we'll get a salt, we'll get a plunder, one sec, and we will get 4 food. And that's how you kind of start racking up your resources to allow you to build for next time. It also then says you get resources based on your total number of havens. So down here on this particular haven that you can't see where I've got this here, it's 1 of each, and there it's 2 plunders. So that's 3 plunder, another salt, and another food. So now I have started to get some more resources that I can start using to build up in the next build phase. And also, so that's the resources based on total number of havens, resources based on every hex with 1 of your havens. Then we move on to the scoring phase. And the scoring phase, we start with the Empire. So that's the Imperial Legions. They get 1 for every hex with any garrison. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're already on 4. Of course, this isn't a proper game I'm playing here. I've just played one side. They also get 1 for every legion in play. There's 1 there. 5. And they get 2 for every faction in the Imperial Graveyard. This is this purple one here. They haven't killed anybody, so that's okay. Now we move on to the Chaos. That's the yellow one. They get 1 victory point for every curse in play, so it's good that I moved that curse. So they get 2 victory points there. 1 for every horde in play. We've only got 1 horde in place. That's another 1 there. And then they get 2 for every faction in the Chaos Graveyard. Because I only played 1 character's side or 1 faction side, there's only 1 faction in there. So they're on to 5 already. Then we move on to my scoring. Well, first of all, we remove all of these from the graveyard. These go back onto my unit board, ready to be bought again. Next round. Then we move on to the faction scoring. Get 2 for each of my havens in play. I've got 2 havens, so that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 there. I get any special hexes. Now, at the bottom of some hexes, there's a victory point mark. There's one just there, so that's another one, 5. And then I can then spend 5 resources to get another victory point. You can do that multiple times depending on how many you spend. So that's kind of a round as it would go. Very, very, very quick round, because I would be playing both factions. I'd really be mapping this out, looking at what I've got to do, because the key things are to try and get at least 1 haven each round, but also to keep on top of the hordes and the legions as well, because as that threat starts to increase, they get more and more difficult. For example, at the beginning of the next round, it's one of the key things is that you increase the threat on each horde and legion in play by 2, so that would have gone up to 6, which makes it far more powerful as well. And I would also then, of course, unveil chapter 2, which is going to put more garrisons and more legions on place. Look at that, place 2 legions at threat 5 on the capital. The capital is this center hex here with a level 3 garrison, and you can see the game starts to build up and build up. And you would say, as I say, you play as many of these chapters as you want, from 2 to 4. That dictates the length of the game. And you can add in additional cards as well. There are modifiers to make it more difficult. It is just a wonderfully adaptive and dynamic game, which plays massively different every time you play it. So, final thoughts on Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor by Nemesis Games then. Well, first of all, for the eagle-eyed amongst you, I know I've put a caption on the video, you'll notice that when I moved the new Emperor onto that particular space, I should have attacked that particular haven, which would have been a totally pointless me putting that haven there in the first place. However, I forgot to do that, but it still gave you a good overview of how the game works. I think it comes as no surprise by how I've spoken about this game, what I said about it at the beginning, that I think it's absolutely fantastic. When we start off with those production qualities and we look at just how good that production quality is, everything from the quality of the cards, the artwork that's on there, these acrylic standees, the rulebook, which is really, really good, the game trays, plus the expansion, which I've not even covered as well. There is just so much good stuff within this game itself. That rulebook, as I mentioned, the fact it's ring-bound really, really helps. You know, you don't get this dog-eared rulebook, and it walks you through practically everything. There are a couple of things that you may just have to work out or just have a look on the forums for, like there are with all rulebooks, but nothing too bad in there. And once you get into the flow of the game, it actually makes a lot of sense as well. So it doesn't become this big kind of crunchy nightmare where you're wondering what you can do. You're mapping out your strategies. You're thinking about what you're doing, what one faction is doing, what the other faction is doing, who's going to tackle what legions and hordes are on the board and how you can best combat them, where the garrisons are, what you need to do, how you need to expand on the map, how to position the tiles so that your units can move and the other units can't move past them. There's a lot of decision space in here, but nothing too extraneous as well. I think in terms of the quality of the gameplay, you know, it's a relatively long game. If you play the full 4 chapters, probably going to take you as a solo player probably a good couple of hours if there's 4 of you, maybe even longer with some space for analysis paralysis as well. So you've got to let yourself know that if you're playing the full 4 chapters, then you're in for a bit of a deep and long game. But the joy that you get out of the game by planning out your strategies, by making things work, and when the dice hit perfectly for you, it's just such a good feeling. You can feel your faction getting stronger as your elite troops start to come out on the boards and your elite warriors start to come out on the boards, as your tableau of items and cards and feat cards starts to build up, as your hero dice abilities start to build up by certain cards you're going to get either from the item deck or from within your deck, and those start to get stronger as well. And the more you move away from the white dice through the kind of yellow dice into the red and the blue and the purple and the black, that's when you're going to really start to feel the strength within your characters. I've had some wonderful battles in this game. Not every one of them I've won or been victorious at as well. And I think, when we touch on the dice play, if you think about, say, another 4X game which I previewed last year, which is Voidfall. Voidfall is the David Turksey, Nigel Buckle one, which is coming from Mind Clash. Kickstarter finished last year. I think it's delivered the year after, next year at some point in 2023. Voidfall is very much a space-based 4X game, but the combat is deterministic there. Now, how much you enjoy Uprising is going to come down to how much you enjoy dice rolls in your game. Because, of course, yes, they're mitigable to some degree, but you're still reliant on whatever face comes out on the dice themselves. And that can be off-putting for some people. And I can see why it's not going to be in everybody's wheelhouse, because not everybody enjoys dice-based play. Personally, for me, I love an element of randomness in this, and I like it when it goes my way. Obviously, a lot of the times it doesn't. As you saw in that particular combat, yes, I defeated the garrisons, but it also wiped out my entirety of units as well. I think, in terms of people who don't like narrative-based games, then it's not really a strong narrative through this. You've got your chapters, which don't really coalesce into a coherent story. They just get progressively harder as the game goes on. And that can be, if you want a narrative game, then this isn't for you. But what it does do exceptionally well, it gives you a sense of investment in each of those factions. As I mentioned, each faction has 2 heroes. There are 4 in the base box, another 4 in the expansion itself, or 2 or 4 in the expansion itself. So there's lots of ways to play around with this, and you can find the best combinations for particular games that you want to play. There are difficulty modifiers. You can make it easier or harder on yourself. You can make the game longer or shorter depending on what you do. The fact it's not a game filled with grey plastic minis is a really good thing as well. The brightly coloured acrylic standees make it very easy to find and determine and identify on the board who is what and where they are. Understanding how the hordes move and the legions move is very important in defining your strategies in how the game is going to play. I'd say I've played this maybe 7 or 8 times now. I will play it a whole bunch more throughout the year. And I can see this game really appearing on a lot of people's top 10 lists at the back end of 2022. I'd say it did arrive to some backers in 2021. I didn't get to play it until the new year, so that's why it didn't make my list of top 10 solo games released in 2021. But I got a feeling that this is a strong contender to be on that list for this year. Very early days, but talk about starting the year with a bang. Everything, as I mentioned, the quality of everything, these garrisons, how they look, how you build those up, the different powers that they give, how the skeletons are and how they attack you, the druid cards, which had kind of an element of additional power if you roll those bolts on the dice, and not all dice have bolts on there. Managing your resources is really important, because you may want to get more units on the board, but you may be aware that you need to place more havens as well, and you've got to kind of map your way out to have a look at the hexes to find out what's there, and potentially you might need some more plunder or more salt. You've got the trade action, which will always give you another salt as well, but that's an action that's going to obviously take up one of your activation markers that you've got on the board as well. Big chunky counters in terms of looking for your victory points, etc. The other minor downside is the amount of table real estate it takes. It's got 3 boards on here, plus your player boards as well. And I've got this round table in my dining room at the moment, and it goes off the edge of that table. So, you do need a fair amount of table space to play this game, as well as time involved with it. Your first couple of games are probably going to be more learning games. You're probably going to get defeated, and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. Play a couple of short games and then go into it. There seems to be a lot of text on the boards. That text isn't really, it's prompts more than anything, so it stops you looking in the rulebook. It tells you how the terrain works, how the skeletons and garrisons work, and really usefully, you've got that chapter tracker going down the side there as well, which is really good, because of course that means that you can just maintain a flow throughout the game as you play the game. I like the quests. I like what they do. They're not an integral part of what you're doing. You could play an entire game without doing the quests, but it's a good way to get some additional boons in there. There is an element of chance in there though, because things may not go your way, because you're going to be rolling dice depending on your hero power. You're going to have to choose which quests you take very carefully. I'll say there are certain cards in there that have a little red skull on them. They're the more advanced cards, if you like. Now I integrate them into my gameplay, but it does make the game harder as the legions and the hordes and the items and the quests become a little bit more difficult for you to kind of manage and overcome. But overall, you know, despite it being a dice-based combat system, despite there being an element of luck there, I enjoy almost everything about this game. I think it's an absolutely quality, fantastic production by Nemesis Games. I think what the designers have done here is managed to get a 4X game into a very niche part of the market, and that is fully co-op and soloable. There really aren't that many games that are 4X, soloable, and fully co-op at the same time, and this hits the mark on every single one. You know, your stories are going to play out very, very different every time. You're going to have a different journey every time, depending on the factions that you choose and what comes out on the board, and the hordes and the legions, etc. And the chapters that you put into play as well. So you are going to have a very, very different journey. It's a dynamic puzzle as you're playing this game as well. It's constantly adapting, constantly trying to change the field of play for you. And just as you think you're expanding maybe on one chapter, then what will happen invariably on the next chapter is you'll contract as the hordes and the legions are built up to such a place that you've got to kind of sacrifice some of your havens. And that's another good thing as well, is there's no one clear path to victory on this. You know, you may start with a particular strategy, and that is to expand, etc. But that may soon overcome you because you haven't managed to keep on top of the hordes and legions. So maybe you go for to get hordes and legions, but you're not putting enough havens on the board, and therefore your resources are down. You can't build the right number of units. And there's all these things going on that you have to take into consideration on each and every turn. It creates a wonderfully crafted puzzle. So overall, from me, it's a stone cold recommendation for Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor by Nemesis Games. I think it is just quality from production through gameplay, through rulebook. Everything about it just screams absolute quality, and a game that's obviously had a lot of love put into its development. So yeah, stone cold recommendation. Go and hunt out a copy if you can. I think Nemesis Games are going to have some copies on their website soon. I hope they run another Kickstarter, because this is a game that deserves to be in many people's collections. So thank you very much for joining me on this journey through Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor from Nemesis Games, a 1 to 4 player, soloable, fully co-op, 4X game, which is just absolutely divine to play. Once you get those rules down, you're going to have such a joy playing this game. My name's Mark. This is Not Board Gaming. That's always B-O-R-E-D. Remember, you can like and subscribe to the channel. You can check out our other videos. And one final thought: if you can't find anyone else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.